What's going on, friends? Hipster Punchy here with our first review. This is going to be for the Rainer Werner Fassbinder, or Rainer Werner, depending on the pronunciation you use, trilogy, the BRD Trilogy. I would like to first start that I've been trying to get this for years when it was out of print. Every time I would try to get this trilogy, I would get sniped on eBay, someone would tell me it was already sold on Reddit. So I was very happy when Criterion announced that this was coming out. So I was actually able to watch and digest all three films. But before I get to that and talking about those, let's talk about the box set itself. So the first thing is that Lola and The Marriage of Maria Braun have a new 4K transfer. Veronica Voss has a digital high definition restoration, which, to be honest, makes sense. That one's not really color rich, it's more of a black and white. So I could see why that one only had just a standard high definition restoration, because I don't think 4K was really going to add much to it, whereas something like Lola, for example, which is very vibrant and color rich, would kind of get that benefit from the 4K. We also have numerous commentaries, including Wim Wenders, another German filmmaker from that era. We've got interviews with the three lead actresses, Hannah Segula, Roselle Zake, and Barbara Sakawa, who played Maria Braun, Veronica Voss, and Lola, respectively. Numerous crew interviews, including Fassbinder editor, and also the 1978 German TV interview with Rainer Werner Fassbinder. Also, the feature-length documentary, I Just Want You to Love Me, which was released in 1992. Along with that, there's a program called A Dance with Death, which is a program from 2000 about Sybil Schmitz, the actress who they based Veronica Voss on. We also have conversations with film historian Lawrence Kardish, and another one with Fassbinder's editor Julianne Lorenz. And then there's trailers for all three films. Now, before I get into each movie individually, I should mention some connective threads. The first being the whole idea of forgetting the past and for the sake of moving on to a brighter future. This is something that Fassbinder felt was, while usually beneficial, almost done to a fault in Germany post-World War II, to the point of former SS officials getting high-ranking positions in Germany during this economic boom, and people who were Nazis in general just almost kind of being forgiven unless they were, at least the ones who were not put on the tribunals. That was one. The other one that's kind of a connective thread is there's a commentary on the post-World War II U.S. occupation of West Germany. This is in the form of the two African-American soldiers in The Marriage of Maria Braun, the one Bill, who actually marries her, and then the other one who's really unnamed, but is actually seen in all three movies, clearly the same actor, same uniform as well. This is also commentary on who exactly benefited from this period. Each female lead has a different experience with this time period. You have Maria Braun, who kind of has to fight to survive. She was married to a high-ranking Nazi official towards the end of World War II, and then even though she thought this was going to kind of put her in a higher echelon socially, once the war ended and when she thought her husband was dead, she actually had to claw, scrape, and fight to get to the top, which she does end up doing, but there's a lot of damage done throughout. Tragic almost at the end as well. Then you've got Veronica Voss, who's not doing well in this time period. She was a star during the World War II Third Reich era, but once that ended, they kind of stopped using her in movies. At one point, they mentioned that there was a fake story going out that she was banished by the Third Reich, but it's kind of known to be BS at that point, so her roles are really minimal, and the most she was able to get was a cameo role for a 2-day shoot in this movie. And then Lola is someone who is kind of in the middle. She didn't have to struggle to get to where she is, and it's not a downswing. She's actually thriving very well in this movie without any effort at all. Meanwhile, everyone else who's trying to get ahead the way she is, or at least the way they think she is, wind up having more tragic results than she is, which it kind of shows not everybody benefited from this time period. So first we're going to go into Maria Braun. I really like this movie. Yes, you can make the argument that Maria Braun is not a likable character, but she's also not supposed to be. Given the story arc, given the way the story goes, she's someone who wants to be in a position of power. Not someone like Lola, for example, who might not thrive it, just kind of wants security for her kid. That, at least with Lola, so that kind of has that endearing quality to it. With Maria Braun, she is just ruthless and power hungry, and she's not afraid to do whatever she can to get to the top, which includes having numerous affairs, screwing over people in business dealings, making shady deals with her husband. There's nothing she won't do to get ahead. What I did like, a lot of the zooms, kind of like the classic melodrama, almost like pan left, zoom in, or pan right, zoom in tactic that used to be used. Because Fassbinder did love his melodramas, especially the Douglas Sirk melodramas. There was upbeat music for not so upbeat scenes, which I thought was a great ironic device that Fassbinder used. I had mentioned the Bill character and the other soldier being representative of the US occupation. I also like the contrast between the situations of Maria and her friend, where she's, again, thriving, meanwhile her friend is in a marriage that is seeming stable at first and then disintegrating as we go. And another example of Maria's being cutthroat to maintain her status is the train sequence where she gets her job as an assistant to a textile owner. And this is just representative of where she's come at this point and how she will do whatever she can to get ahead. I do like, too, that the lead actress in this one actually has like the kind of look that she's almost classically stunning, but she also has that not trustworthy demeanor to her. I think that actually fits Maria Braun perfectly. So, and I think that was by design by Fassbinder, because he had worked with her in the past, and this role was kind of written for her. In a way, some of the other ones were in the other movies before she spoiled that and he changed his mind. The mother when she picked up a call, that scene was really good. Also, Maria almost changes her look when Herman leaves her, I should say. I'm not going to spoil why, but for that sequence when he does leave her, she almost drops the facade a little bit. So she's a little more vulnerable at that point. She's still trying to get ahead, but there's less ruthlessness because everything she was doing to make sure her and her husband were at the same spot they were when they married. And the final act juxtaposition between Maria trying to be like fun and sexy and playful while Herman just doesn't give a damn is probably one of the best sequences leading up to that bittersweet ending, which I, again, will not spoil for those who haven't seen it, but you guys know what I mean there. We're going to move on to Veronica Voss now. I love the overall tone, the noir stylings of it, which kind of get more and more obvious as the movie goes. I also like the fades they did with this one. And in the conversations with the editor, she had mentioned they were going to digitally do the fades, but they actually wind up founding those kind of fades when they were in the editing warehouse they were in that were left over from the 30s and 40s. So they decided to implement them, and it gives it this naturally 30s and 40s style look, even more so than the black and white they used and the different costuming they used, which I found out they had their wardrobe people make the characters wear everything that was worn in that era. And that even means underwear, down to the underwear, as far as what they wore, because they wanted this to be realistic. They wanted them to feel how the characters might have felt in the clothing. So whatever was worn during that time era was the materials they used for the costuming in this movie and in the other movies in the trilogy. And again, one thread with this movie is that it shows someone who was on top for a while and then after the war lost it. This is a tragic movie. Nobody wins in this. And that's the point, because Veronica Voss, while she's on her downward spiral, is almost like an anchor where she brings other people down with her. Some die, some just are in mental or financial ruin. Honestly, the only one who really benefits is her doctor, who benefits for the shadiest of reasons. Again, not going to spoil certain plot threads. I do like how they almost did different lighting with Veronica Voss, in some ways to almost make her look more youthful than she is, and then in others to show her age. And they do this, the more desperation she shows, the older it makes her look, which I think is actually perfect visual storytelling and probably some of my favorite sequences. I mentioned earlier in this video about almost like Germany's amnesia about World War II, and there was a very on-the-nose scene with that involving the vase maker when Veronica's vase is broken and Harriet goes to actually pick up a new one. And the vase maker, who is clearly a Jewish male, which they show by him showing his number tattoo on his arm, talks about how he doesn't really go outside anymore because inside his home is his world, And he likes that. He doesn't like the outside world because A, of what they did to him, and B, the fact that they're almost kind of going, hey, nothing to see here, nothing happened, everything is fine. Which doesn't sit well with him and honestly shouldn't sit well with anybody. And then you have Lola. This is the third movie in the trilogy. This is another fantastic one. This is different because it has rich, vibrant colors, almost looks like a screwball comedy meets a melodramatic film. What I liked is the parallel to the Blue Angel. This isn't a straight up remake of the Blue Angel. It's almost like Fassbinder took the general concept of a guy who's kind of like a morally higher up person and almost gets corrupted by someone that he ends up falling for, which, I mean, is the case here with the building inspector von Braun. He, at first, is very straight-laced, almost described as modern yet traditional in his viewpoints. He loses this chasing after Lola. Lola, again, I mentioned this earlier, she's not like Maria Braun, where she's just a ruthless person who wants to get to the top no matter what. She's doing what she does for the sake of her kid. So that includes working at the brothel to make as much money as possible. That includes trying to almost sweet talk the owner of the brothel into eventually giving her the deed for the brothel. Even deciding to go after von Braun and falling for him because he almost does seem like the type of person who would be good to be kind of like a stepfather to her child or to a child in general. And what she's doing while she's effortlessly thriving in this situation is for better reasons than someone like a Maria Braun, which I do like the contrast. And I like that even though this was the second movie made, that it's the third one, because it almost makes Veronica Voss be the, like, sad medium between the two. What I liked, too, about this one was that the coloring for both Lola and von Braun in the scene when they're in the car. Von Braun's got the blue, because he's like almost stuffy, so he gets the dark blues. Lola gets the vibrant reds, because that's what she's a vibrant personality. In this movie, at one point, von Braun finds out her actual profession because he does not know this for most of the movie, and he almost tries to wage war against the owner of the brothel, who's also a very high-ranking developer in the area. Going back to the theme of who exactly benefits, someone like the developer actually benefits because he's actually making these developments and it is creating jobs for other people in the town. So when in other decades exposing this corruption would have been a huge deal, they're almost like, I don't care, why are you trying to take away my cash flow about it? So it almost gets to this point where part of the reason that von Braun falls is Lola, but the other part of it is because he's realizing people just don't care about exposing corruption. They just want to make a living at this point. They want to benefit from the economic boom, and they're going to turn a blind eye to the people who are actually making that money for them, which is, funny enough, a good parallel to today with the way some people act as far as whether you're for or against billionaires. So I do find that to be a great parallel. And I hope you guys watch this trilogy. I hope you guys enjoy it. The Barnes & Noble sale is still going on, so it's 50% off. I would highly recommend watching this trilogy and digesting all three films. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Ring that bell. And then you can follow me on Instagram, Twitch, and Twitter at HipsterPunchy. Let's roll out.